Okay, so good afternoon. Welcome to you all to the first execution session of the calibration program of C-Voucher. My name is Almudena. I'm here on behalf of Box, which is the voucher coordinator. And with us today, we have Dieter Faith from Belcommune. She'll be your host today for the execution session. And I'll give her the floor in a minute, but before, for those of you which is the first time attending to this calibration program, I would like to let you know a few things about C-Voucher and the program itself. So C-Voucher was the first pan-European initiative with a focus on the circular economy. We've been funded under the H2020 program. And we've been working to support traditional SMEs on their way towards circular economy by using design thinking concepts and leveraging on technology. Right? Our consortium was composed by 12 partners. 6 of those are regional innovation hubs, as the one that Dieter is representing today. And since we launched the project back in April 2018, we've accelerated 54 companies. 12 of those are circular solutions, taking part in a long program of 9 months. And 42 of those are adapters, business cases from adapters, taking part in a shorter program, mostly to plan for their solutions. I think that during this time, we've gained very interesting and actionable learnings on how to accelerate circular solutions to improve the growth in a territory regionally. So we would like to share those insights with you, and this is the reason of this calibration program. We would like to share with you not only the tools and the concepts which we have used during the voucher, but also we would like to help you in terms of considering which things you need to adapt to your own ecosystem or needs, right? So I'll leave this to Dieter today, and before just starting, just a couple of remarks for the call, right? So in the right-hand menu, you'll see that there's a question section, and you can type your questions there during the presentation, right? And we'll try to answer them in the end. There will be a question and answer slot by the end of the meeting for you to ask anything you would like to. But if you prefer to speak out loud and make the questions to Dieter yourself, just let me know, raise your hand, and I'll open the microphone for you so that you're able to talk. This is it. Thank you again for your attention, and I hope you enjoy the session. So, Dieter, please, the floor is yours.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me start by saying that this is the first webinar that I have hosted. So very excited for that reason alone. And thank you for the introduction, Almudena. Today is actually the 4th session of our calibration program, where we're going to address execution. So actually how to run the program and not least some of the learnings that we have done in that period. I represent Vejle, who is a Danish regional partner in C-Voucher. And so we are one of the 6 regions who have worked to implement this. Actually, in Denmark, C-Voucher started in a different region called the Triangle region. And after some time, we moved the project to Vejle. So actually a municipal setting. In Vejle, C-Voucher is, and the circular economy is a very big priority. It's a policy area that we work with both in the technical, environmental, city administration and policies, so the climate plans. It's also an area that we work a lot with in the waste management, and for instance, we do a full closed loop with producing biogas from the organic household trash and then fueling our waste management trucks with that biogas, etc. So C-Voucher in Vejle is not only about businesses, but it's really a citywide area of interest and strategies. And in Vejle, we have actually a very accessible, in English, a resilience strategy where we have described 100 initiatives on how to become a resilient city. And the circular economy is certainly a part of that. That's very shortly about Vejle and our interest in C-Voucher. So as a municipality, it's a very great privilege and opportunity to be sort of the operator of an initiative like this. Usually municipalities like Vejle, in Denmark at least, do not get to become the operator of an innovation program for our companies. So this is a first off for us also. And if anyone listening in today or hearing this at some point is a municipality like Vejle, this is also a perspective that we would definitely like to share. So just reminding, and this is the full schedule of the so-called calibration program, or like Almudena said, the process to really try and adapt C-Voucher to any local context. And today we gave it the headline of execution. We actually have 2 sessions on execution, today and next week. How to design an acceleration program with impact, and how to engage companies, and how to manage bottom-up processes efficiently. So this is one part we will be covering today, and next week we're going to do a deep dive into specifically the use of design thinking as a driver of new business models, because this has been something very particular of C-Voucher and something that we will allocate a full session to in itself. But given that that there has been a session on strategy and design, I will assume that some of this knowledge about C-Voucher and the rationale and what is circular economy, etc., is hopefully clear by now. I certainly did not plan on covering it today in the presentation. So I hope you will, if there's something unclear, that you will either ask or that you can go back and look at the previous sessions to catch up. All right. So when preparing for this today and saying, well, execution of C-Voucher is really the experience that we've had to try out these concepts, this approach of C-Voucher in real life in 6 very different regions. So that's what execution is. But let me quickly start with the definition. Execution is the ability to mesh strategy with reality, align people with goals, and achieve the promised results. Pretty straightforward. And then I also took another one here. Complexity is the enemy of execution. And I really thought that in light of that, maybe I should already try to correct the headline with apologies. But I think it's important that we mindset that when we share some insights about the execution, rather than how to design an acceleration program, what we will try to talk about is how to run an acceleration program with real companies, real and different companies, and also how to manage not only bottom-up processes, but also the uncertainty, if not the complexity, efficiently. This is what execution is really about, is taking the plan, the strategy, the concepts, and then going into reality with it. So this is the dirty experiences of 6 regions working with C-Voucher for the first time. Again, when we talk about execution, and I can't see my That's a bit weird, but I can't see properly my screen. All right. The core questions that we will address when we have set up a program like C-Voucher, we have done it in the way that you saw last time, with open calls, with innovation vouchers, with a certain service, with a certain acceleration, and certain expectations on what we want to achieve. I would like to highlight that when we do execution, there are still some core questions, core focus areas for us. It's extremely important to select the right innovation proposals. So when we execute and things go fast and things differ and reality is different from what we planned, how do we select the right innovation proposals? It's also important to realize when working with real companies and different companies in a very grounded sense, how do we support new business models? Because what is really interesting and what is really the idea of C-Voucher and the circular economy is that to achieve circularity, we need to come as close to the business model as possible. Now, a business model refers to how a company makes value. So in terms of degrees of circularity, it's much more interesting to get the circular business model in place rather than, say, greening up a product in a company. So execution is a core question for us, is all the time, how do we support new business models? So not greening up products, but business models, because this is how circularity is achieved. A third question is, how do we support smart circular through technology? The whole thesis of C-Voucher, and this is mainstream by now, but I think it was something that was not as obvious 3 years ago. But the power couple of circular business models and technology is important to recognize, because circularity is about handling material many more times. It's about adding processes. It's about taking stuff apart, reassembling it again, reselling it again, collecting it, etc., etc., etc. Everything that adds cost. So technology is extremely important to make circular business models viable and scalable, but certainly also viable. So that is a key element in C-Voucher, and even it's very important that there is a technological component to drive this for viability. And finally, I think also a very interesting or central question in the execution is not only saying, okay, we supported 54 companies or we supported a solution. It's really saying, how do we come from this demonstration level to actual growth or actual impact or actual uptake, wider uptake? So the systemic perspective is also important, and it's not easy to execute, as we will come back to. So these are some of the questions that I think, regardless of the plan that C-Voucher is, like how to do it, how to run open calls, how to accelerate the companies, how to replicate the solutions, these are very central questions of the execution that we need to focus on constantly. If you were here in last week's session that was about the design, you have seen this model. And I chose to bring it because C-Voucher is a little bit of a waterfall model. So we have a lot of processes that come after each other and take inputs from each other, as you can see here. Now, I'm going to spend some time on this model, so please don't be frustrated on the abbreviations and the complexity of it, because we're going to go through it. I think this is very central because this is how we execute C-Voucher. Last week's presentation was really about setting up the partnerships. So working together between the region, between the cluster organizations, between industry partners to make a very strong partnership to promote and also to support the circular transformation and to support the C-Voucher program for SMEs. So the first question, what should we focus on? And this is might seem like a very basic question. Let me see. What is so extremely important to understand when what C-Voucher does? Let me start again. Sorry. The first process is the definition of the challenges. The process of this, as you would have learned last week, is a defined methodology where clusters and the C-Voucher partnership organizes a number of events, seminars, workshops with SMEs within their industry to discuss and create a dialogue about what are the challenges and the barriers. And we call this sort of a bottom-up definition because the process in C-Voucher is that, let's say that there are 3 different clusters involved. We do this in all the industries that we have chosen to work with. And then we have a process to do a selection, and I wouldn't say mainstreaming, but sort of presenting these challenges in one coherent catalog of circularity challenges. The idea of this is manifold. Obviously, to make sure that the challenges that we are describing and the barriers, that they're based in reality. I think we call it market driven or needs driven, so that the open call and the support and the vouchers will actually be able to address the real barriers. I think there's another important point in making this catalog of circularity challenges, because it's very important during these meetings and definition workshops to actually get the dialogue going with the companies. This is really a first step of mobilizing, so that when the open call comes, it's not a surprise to the companies, and there's some sort of anticipation of the call, which then heightens the interest and ultimately the results. Because the challenges feed directly into the open calls launch, the open calls material. So an open call is really an advertisement of a grant, of a voucher, of an acceleration opportunity. So it's the advertisement where we look for companies and invite the companies to bring their own proposal on what they would like to do, what circularity, what circular business plan, or what circular project, or what circular solution they would like to do in their business. Again, this advertisement needs to reach the companies, and I'm sorry, here in line 2 you will see all the abbreviations. So RAs is regional agencies, the clusters, the technology partners. They will all help to disseminate and to share this advertisement and to have a dialogue with the companies. And I think this process is extremely important to align the expectations, to give the companies confidence that they can actually participate in this, and to also set the expectations on what is required and what is actually circular economy. A lot has happened just within the last 3 years from when we started C-Voucher till now. I think circular economy has become much more mainstream. But 3 years ago, there was more a need to get a little bit behind the wording of circular economy. So this process of dissemination of the open call is extremely important, of course, to make sure that companies are aware, and that also they make a good application, a comprehensive application, so that we get some critical mass. It's very important when we spend public money or any innovation action, really, that there are good competitive proposals, so that we get to actually choose the best ones who really fit the program and who have the potential that we are looking for. So beyond the dissemination, it's also really important how we select the SMEs. I will come back to some examples of this. Right now, I want to say what are really the core processes and how has this been solved. Now, the selection of the right proposals is extremely important. We need companies who will fit the program. We also need companies who have an ambition project, who has ambitions on circular economy, so that they will indeed be able to grow and make excellent solutions. And we need also to look for solutions that have wider industry relevance, because we are looking to replicate these solutions since. At the same time, we must also ensure in a regional setting and in any public innovation action that there's complete fairness in the selection, that there's a degree of transparency and justice, if you will, or at least a consistency on how we select, because we've had up to 200 SMEs applying for our calls, which is also a lot of time on their part. So to really get to the match is the important thing here. It was never a goal for C-Voucher to get 1,000 applications just to turn 950 down. The important thing here is to get high quality applications, and also really work with the companies that they start seeing a circular journey for themselves with or even without support. So selecting the right proposals is extremely important. Now, when I said that this C-Voucher execution flow is a little bit like a waterfall, let's go back to the challenges, the catalog of circularity challenges, because the link between the open call text, so what are we advertising, which type of projects are we looking for, there is some relation to the circularity challenges, because we wanted to make sure that we fund projects that have a real need in the market. There are more ways to do this. Should the open call exclusively support challenges or proposals that address the challenges of the catalog, or should it be more of an inspiration to help companies identify what could be a project? This is something quite important, and yeah, the more exclusively we use the challenges, the more precise and actionable they need to be in the catalog. We'll get a little bit back to that, and I hope this is something that we would be able to discuss. It's very difficult to explain as such. If we go to the third line, after we have selected the SMEs, the next question, of course, in the acceleration program is how can we provide a relevant and high quality support and high impact. Now, the starting point of the acceleration program is the proposal from those SMEs that we selected. So we don't come and tell the SME what to do. They already come with a fixed idea on what they want to do. Now, the purpose of the acceleration program, in this case a 9-month acceleration program, is to develop a new solution that can then be replicated and have some relevance in the wider industry context of that industry. So the acceleration program, which is, by the way, very detailed, described as a process and with templates and outputs, etc. We'll come a little bit back, but these are all resources that are available for you to follow. However, it's not like an IKEA furniture where you just follow the instruction and then you get the perfect chair. It's a really grounded process, and I will come back to the elements, because there are basically three phases in this. There's a solution definition, which is the stage one, where we work a lot with what is called here the DIR, the design consultant, the designer in residence, where we work to scope the solution, to improve the idea, to check up with the wider ecosystem and address the potential and the opportunity with the available expertise, for instance, in the clusters, in the industries, but really make sure to qualify and improve this solution. Once there is a clear solution that has been defined, scoped, there is a public, sorry, not a public, but there is a procurement of this service, this solution. The solution will have a technical component. It could be a digital solution for take-back system. It could be test and development of a new process technology for working with a new material. It could be many things. The thing is, this sort of expertise and technology is not present in the C-Voucher partnership consortia. So there is a voucher for this technical procurement to pilot and to realize the solution that will support the circular business model or business process that in case. And that is exactly saying that, and after or during the process of starting to implement and pilot and seeing the contours of a new solution, it's really important to address what will come after these 9 months. What's the next step? In all the cases, this is not a done deal once the 9 months of C-Voucher is over. There's usually a need for further investigation, for further investment, for further development in order to fully utilize the solution. So a focus here, it's called mentors, which is really a support on making a business plan and making a plan for how to further develop the solution after the C-Voucher program. So these three elements are very important to orchestrate over the 9 months, and it is a challenge to make sure that there's some sort of seamlessness here, not least because there's just many circumstances once you start piloting and testing and using different technology providers, etc. So relevant support and high impact is very important. Now, what comes out of these projects, the circular solutions that are the output of phase 3 here, those circular solutions were the ones that we selected in line 2. So our interest as a C-Voucher, as any promoter of this, is to have circular solutions that are somehow exemplary, or at least in the sense that they inspire further uptake or similar developments in many other companies. So that idea of replication potential is extremely important in C-Voucher. Now, coming to the execution and saying, how do you realize that? I think to get to the circular solution and using it for replication, it's very important that the circular solution has had the right scope from the beginning, so that we are supporting the companies to get to a point where there's some sort of tangible result afterwards that we can communicate, and that it has been scoped in the way that there has been a very relevant development over the 9 months. So that's again an effect from the beforehand phase, like which company, which ideas we chose will impact which circular solutions we have. Now, which circular solutions we have will impact then the 4th phase, the replication, because these circular solutions are the inspiration for further shorter replication programs. Just quickly to give you the numbers, in line 3, in the solution development, we did 12 solutions in C-Voucher. Now in the fourth line in the replication, we did 42 replications. So, you could also say it's a lot cheaper to do the replication because there's not the technology development, which takes time and is also costly in this case. However, in the replication, the starting point for the replication is that there is some sort of tangible solution that we can discuss. And there are a lot of companies who are then helped to do sort of a feasibility or a business case into either adapting sort of the same circular solution or at least be inspired by it. So in the replication program, it's actually it's 3 months, not 9 months, and there's not a technology development aspect because the starting point are the solutions. And of course, the question here is that we want to make a high impact. It's very important that there is a value of the circular solutions beyond the individual company that developed it. Now, coming to calibrating, like how can you calibrate an execution? That really doesn't make sense. But for us, it's very important to share with you what are sort of the experiences on going through this, and if you choose to do a C-Voucher, what can we recommend and what to be aware of. So firstly, I think to have the coherence check, I would like you here to be reminded that all the outputs on the right side, the catalog of circularity challenge, potentially impacts which SMEs we're able to select. Which SMEs we're selecting affects very much which circular solutions we are building. And now which circular solutions we're building affects very much what type of uptake and in effect impact that the project will have. So doing the coherence check is extremely important during the execution because there are these dependencies. Being very aware of these dependencies is also important. And I think anyone replicating or being inspired by C-Voucher will have a huge advantage to not do it for the first time, because in all frankness, some of these dependencies is something that you find out underway during the execution. So having the awareness and doing that coherence check is extremely important to build into the execution. And to do that, it is really a question of reflecting how you do partnership and program management. This is not a program that manages itself. It needs to really work well with the partnership engagement, with the corporate partner support, with the cluster support, everything. There needs to be the coherence, the awareness, and the partnership and program management. I think these are some of the very central learnings that we have done. You know, the plan is in the middle. This is how it was designed. It has a beautiful elegance, and some might also see some complexity. But really, the execution is about ensuring success, ensuring that we get the results. It's just really important to check that we get the right focus, that we select challenges that we can actually work with and address, that are actionable, that we select the right companies that have the right mindset, that have the right project, and that we ensure that we make an impact with the services that we provide, that we can actually help these companies and these challenges in the service. I wanted to quickly come with some insights on why this is so important now, or what we have learned more exactly. So I said before that catalog of circularity challenges is important. I described the process, and here you are also able to find these resources in the C-Voucher resources. You can see how we did the methodology. You can see how we built the catalog and how it went into the proposal. What I want to make sure, or just some of the learnings, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but this is what comes to mind, that when we talk about bottom-up, the challenges that we define are not necessarily the objectively most correct challenges of an industry. Bottom-up means situated. It means that the results and knowledge we generate is based on actual dialogue with actual companies. The more meetings we have with more companies, the more structured and the more in-depth we make the dialogue, the better is our knowledge. If we, on the other hand, have few companies, we have a very loose structure, we end up with challenges that are more, that are less representative, at least, of the branch. And the reason it's so important to reflect this is, as I said before, how do we use these challenges? Do we use them as exclusive thematic catalog, or do we just use them as inspiration and see the process as engaging the companies? I think it's also very, very important to be aware that in a dialogue with industries, and what we've learned is that you don't want to stop the dialogue. You want to hear everything that the companies are saying. It's been extremely valuable to have these type of events with the companies. But what is important to distinguish here is that focusing a lot on some of the legal challenges, say it could be that there's a legal decision that you cannot use something that has once been classified as waste, it could be within the food sector, then into a new product. Now, legal challenges is not actionable with C-Voucher. So it's very important to sort of steer, or at least be aware that the challenges that we can work with in C-Voucher are innovation challenges, are business model challenges, are value chain challenges. So just to sort between the challenges and be aware on what can we actually act on. And this is the point, is to say one or the other approach to talking with the companies is fine. It's just important to be coherent with how you then choose to use it later on. Because you could also say, if you do conversations with hundreds of companies and they share with you, there's some sort of anticipation that the open call will then reflect this reality, because then there's motivation to go and solve it. This is a picture from some of the many events that were held, and I believe these are from Romania, that were very successful in working with quite a few clusters and did a lot of data gathering. And I think these dialogue meetings also serve the purpose of really putting circular economy on the map with a lot of these companies. So the second, some of the learnings we did about selecting the right companies and proposals is of course extremely important. Now, I would like to say that what is a good application? In our case, in C-Voucher case, when you do an open call, we ask the companies to submit a proposal. On the one hand, if it's a very loose application, how do we then apply criteria to select what are the good ideas, what are the bad ideas? However, if we're very specific and ask the companies to provide a lot of information, there might not be the openness we need to be able to really apply the design thinking methods in the beginning of the project. So the art of a good application is something I put here because I think it's something to be considered. It's a very difficult balance to strike, so it's an awareness point. And I think if I may be specific about our experiences with C-Voucher, we did particularly see that we were hoping and aiming to work with some of these established companies in the traditional branches, or food processing companies, manufacturers of this and that. And they were a little bit alienated to some of our wordings in the applications because they were not used to working into public innovation projects. So whereas a lot of the startups that chose to apply were really good at understanding what is a good application, or how do I really jam up my ambition level so it looks like I'm going to solve cancer with a potato peel. Of course, that is exaggerated what I'm saying here, but I think to really understand the audience and to balance out a degree of openness, but also a degree of information level. Again, I will say that all of our open call material is freely available for you to study and for you to see. And it's something that the funding box will be very happy to also discuss and in the spaces. Again, I mentioned this about we actually in C-Voucher, we got a lot more applications than we were thinking we were going to get. And this is about, there are many things that factor in on how many of you proposals you get. Is it easy to apply? Do we allow all industries to apply, or do we select very few that are in line with our smart specialization? Do we allow for both startups and established companies, or how do we distinguish? This is something to be aware of. We cannot recommend, I think we struck a very good balance in C-Voucher with the amount of branches and stuff that we chose to not get too many proposals, but still have a competitive level of proposals. And that's exactly the balance you want to strike, because it's also a lot of work to properly evaluate applications and proposals. So if you have 500, you really need to consider how do you allocate the time to look through these. Then again, the fairness and evaluation of the selected. What I can say here is that there will always be opinions. Circular economy is also an area that is maturing. There's a lot of different, the way we have worked, and I'm hoping here that you recall that we're working with circular building blocks or circular strategies as a way of what type of projects we're looking for. Circular building blocks could be anything from sharing economy to material symbiosis to prolonged product lifetime, etc. Now, there are different opinions and different maturity of some of these strategies. I mean, even if we allow all these building blocks, there's still, a different degree of circularity, a different degree of impact, etc., on the proposals. So having clear criteria is extremely important, and being consequent when evaluating is really important. And I just want to say that even if you make the best system and you use external evaluation, like we have proposing in C-Voucher, and you can see it in the reports, it's still extremely difficult to get that exact right match. I'm showing you here actually a figure from one of our reports where we show the process, and I show this just to let you know that it's not that easy. Creating the transparency, creating the quality needs a lot of thought, and I hope you can be inspired concretely about some of these processes. And I know it looks extremely complex, but finding the right match is such a critical point, because this is where we're going to spend the vouchers, spend the time, and these are the solutions that we are getting. However, I also wanted to say, if I had been too negative just a moment ago or telling you how hard it was, I wanted to say that we had a lot of great applications. We had a lot of value from talking with the companies and reading all of the proposals, and we were able to work with 12 solutions and 42 adapters, and everyone has completed the project. So it's been 100% follow through on the ones that we have selected. I also invite you to look at our cases. I think actually this is probably one of the most inspiring thing is always to read what were the results, because the results are the impacts and that the projects have done in the individual companies. We have a very good mix of companies that span from startups with new innovative circular products and business models to very established companies in manufacturing or textile that are applying whole new circular business processes. So please take a look at our cases, and we're very happy that when we see this slide that these are the very tangible results of C-Voucher. Again, I came back to saying that particularly in the 9 months program, it's very important to try and focus on doing this as a service. So the company must, of course, comply with our needs for documentation, our what could you say, our right to look and assess the progress, etc. But really, this is about service. This is about taking their idea and making it great and making it into a solution. And the seamlessness is something to consider. And it is because companies are different. The expectations to the service and facilitation and how handheld is very different. The needs of the companies are different. Now, our learning is that this is actually something you can work with, you know. So if you have a portfolio of 15 companies, you're able to support some a bit more, and some are more independent and more mature. It's a very banal statement here, but companies are different, and that's why sometimes these programs of 9 months or 3 months can be a little bit challenging. But you know that when you start with the company's proposal, you've had a lot of process on which projects you chose. You sort of know how does your portfolio look. The solution scope, I mentioned it initially because it's very important to get to something that can inspire, to get to something that is as close to tangible as possible. It's not always the case, and sometimes we've chosen great projects because the solution was very relevant, but we didn't end up with a tangible product that we could showcase. In some cases, we've also had intellectual property being an issue for why companies were not very happy to share the details. But the solution scope is very important because the company needs to really move over these 9 months, and it's important to be ambitious but also realistic. And then setting the expectations and making sure that you have companies that, you know, I spelled ambition wrong here, but have the ambition to go beyond, to have this be the first step. The circular journey shouldn't end with trying out C-Voucher. So really having the ambition is very important in the companies, and setting the expectations on what it means to work within a funded project like this. It could be with regards to documentation, could be with regards to participation with cases, it could be with regards to opening up their process and sharing their experiences, etc. Again, I encourage you to go and see some of our good cases. I'm not going to go through this because this is just an example again from some of the resources that are available. Anyone wanting to implement or be inspired of this 9 months program can find a detailed process description, can find overviews like this of saying what happens in the different phases of the project, what are the outputs of the project. We have even tried to provide templates on some of these outputs during the acceleration program. I chose not to go through it because this is exactly like the IKEA chair that I was saying. We might write this as an instruction, but I think it's more of an inspiration, because what we need to share with you are exactly the learnings about the different needs for support, the learnings about how technology development can suddenly take a lot more time than previsited, etc., etc. These are really the things that we want to share with you. This you can read, you can download, it's freely available, and it's an acceleration program description with templates. Again, what is very important finally about creating impact by ensuring that there's an uptake of these solutions. Here, the starting point of the open call are the solutions. So when we go and with the open call for the replication, we then show what are the 6 or 12 C-Voucher solutions. And these solutions, on par with the circularity building blocks should then inspire other SMEs to write a proposal to test the feasibility of applying such a solution in their company or making a somewhat related business case. And now what is important, this duality of having a 9-month program and a replication program is meant to inspire and to get more companies to take up actual solutions that were not necessarily existing in the market. We've had some cases where we have promoted these circular solutions, and then we've had companies who wanted to do collaboration with some of our companies, or we've had companies that looked like companies with a very similar or even competing offer. And this is a difficulty between wanting to inspire more companies to take up the solution and then avoiding that zone where it becomes where you actually support a competitor of that first company. These are some interesting considerations to have, and it's extremely, in our learning, it's extremely important to communicate this, because if you want to be able to really showcase the solutions, you also need to have that expectations with the company already at the proposal stage, so that they decide if this is something for them or not. And obviously, in solutions where there's technology and with intellectual property rights in play, then this puts some limits on how much you can share. So collaboration, competition, creating some sort of collaboration on top of these projects is definitely something we've seen. We've seen it on some of the blue growth solutions, where we've hit a spot that seems to be blooming in the market. We've seen it also on some of the on the food projects, where we've seen valorization of some of the waste streams as extremely popular. And so we sort of see some trends in some of the applications. And the good thing is that the reconfirmation is that when we've done solutions and a lot of other companies are doing something, it really shows that we have been able to choose something with a wider industry relevance. We want the solutions to be exemplary, to inspire, but we also have to face that in reality, we need to develop. We cannot promise that from the beginning, because over the 9 months, unexpected things can happen, or some stuff can be that it doesn't get done, or there are just many uncertainties, and you cannot totally mitigate these risks. You cannot promise or guarantee that you will have exemplary solutions, but you can have indications that you have the right solutions when you see that there is an interest on collaborating, or you see a lot of similar cases that then want to do a replication phase, because it's quite efficient to then work with them in only 3 months. Again, we chose in C-Voucher to test this duality between a long program and a replication program. And we've done 12 solutions and 42. Of course, in each setting, you can always discuss, is there a balance between how much you achieve in the 9 months compared to how much you can achieve with 42 companies. These numbers and this duality is not, in all honesty, it's not necessary, and there could be many variations on how you wanted to do that. I want to stress and to just be frank about that the duality for us was to really push forward technically enabled circular solutions, and we wanted the technology providers, so the whole tech sector, to also start to grow this market, to start looking at circular economy as something directing their solution development. And that comes a little bit back to that systemic perspective and systemic impact that C-Voucher was really designed, the elegance, but also the complexity. So I want to end also where we started, and because I don't know if I have made a lot of points really to you. What I think is we wanted to share was not so much what should we do. We don't want to give you this IKEA instruction on how to build the chair. We rather want to give you some tips on what are really some of the core processes, the core questions to ask yourself to make sure that you have checkups on the coherence, to check up that there's an awareness of the flow and the dependencies from one flow to the other, and to make sure that you have the right allocated management, both of the partnership and of the acceleration program, because it doesn't run itself. It's many different procedures. Now, the resources, I will say it just one last time, are all available for you on our web, and I encourage you to look through both the challenge definition methodology. I encourage you to look at the open call processes and results. I encourage you to look at the circularity program descriptions, templates, and the replication program. Everything is there, but making sense of it, I really hope that you will take the chance to get in touch with us, because we're very, very interested to share with you. We're very proud of the results, but we also think we have some good hints on do's and don'ts and some pitfalls. So I've actually spoken much more than I thought, but thank you very much for listening. And really, I hope we will start the dialogue now in the spaces.
Yep. Thank you very much for your explanations. They were very interesting. I see no questions in the platform this far. There's no raise hands either. But don't be shy. Try to ask if you have any questions. On top of that, I just want to remind you that we will be sharing the recording in the community where we are sharing all the materials, as Tite said. You can ask your questions there as well. If anything pop-ups after the session, you can still ask there, and we will pay attention to your questions. Also, as I did in some other sessions before, this is not just kind of a training. We don't want to show you how to do this. And I think that we can contribute to our learnings, but you can also interact with the other members of the community, because some of them probably are facing the same problems, are going through the same procedures, and probably have a point of view that at least can be useful for you. So yeah, don't miss the chance and ask there. So yeah, still no questions, still no raised hands. Okay. Yep, no. Okay. So, well, in any case, I'll give you a couple of minutes more, but you can find there in the community some of the cases Tite has been speaking about. You can find the cases, the business cases in circular solutions, what they did, their own explanation in their own words. Probably you can find them interesting. Yeah. So if no questions or no raised hands, I think we can close the session, Tite, if you're fine.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, then this is it. Thank you once more for your attention and your time, and I hope that session was interesting for you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.